All right, guys. So I actually caught the debate between Joy Reid and Christopher Rufo in regards to critical race theory. Okay, and my God, guys, Christopher Rufo, he won by default. Okay, and the reason why is because Joy Reid was just not interested in having a good faith argument at all. I mean, she hit him with leftist talking point after leftist talking point after leftist talking point, and it became very clear, probably 2 minutes into this debate, that she's just not interested in hearing any counter argument to what she already believes, which is that critical race theory good and that white people bad and that the right is just making everything up. That's literally what she believes. And guys, I want to react to this debate because it's hard for me to really break it down because there's not really much to break down, but this really just shows just how much leftists are not interested in actually listening to anybody on the right or listening to anything outside of their worldview. And it's funny because, you know, this is kind of following up off the Steven Crowder thing. You know, a lot of people on the left are like, oh, people on the right, they never want to debate, right? They don't want to debate the facts. When anytime somebody on the right debates somebody on the left, stuff like this ends up happening where leftists just don't debate in good faith, right? And a lot of people on the right just like, you know what, I'm not debating leftists anymore because they don't even want to have a real conversation in good faith. And this right here might be the most obvious example of that.
Raqqa school board meetings are one result of a national campaign by political operatives to eradicate curriculums on racial and other forms of equity, which, mind you, is not the same thing as critical race theory.
Oh my God, bro. See, she starts out before even introducing him with a flat out lie. Okay. Critical race theory is a race equity mythology, right? It's a race equity mythology. So to sit here and try to say that teaching forms of racial equity in school, oh, that's not critical race theory. She's ignoring the fact that it's an element, that's what critical race theory is based on. And guys, this basically is going to be how the whole interview basically goes, right? Of her just really not knowing what she's talking about because she's evolved from saying that, well, Republicans are banning critical race theory, therefore they're banning slavery and Jim Crow, even though she knows and she would admit that slavery and Jim Crow, teaching that is teaching history. That's not teaching critical race theory. You don't need critical race theory to teach slavery and Jim Crow. That it just happened, right? Now, how you break that down in terms of why it happened and the dynamics of it, yes, you can look at that through a critical race lens, but you don't have to do that in school. You just teach the history. She tried to say that Republicans are banning history. She know that was a ridiculous statement because that shows that she's actually ignorant about critical race theory, despite calling everybody else ignorant. So now she's devolved to, well, they're trying to ban teaching racial equity. And then she admits that that's not critical race theory. Right? So I don't know where she's going with this thing. I really don't. She's just pushing propaganda.
One of those operatives, critical race theory opponent, Christopher Rufo, joins me now. And Christopher, thank you so much for making some time to be with us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start out and do the elephant in the room. So you and I started off on a little bit of a Twitter beef. I talked about you. I quoted you in an article that one of our great journalists here at NBC had quoted you in a piece, and I quoted that on TV. And then you tweeted that you wanted to come on the show and said, you know, I didn't have the courage to put you on. Now, I will just note that Twitter is a hyperbole zone. So, you know, whatever. It's all water under the bridge. But I just want to just get to a couple of little factual things. Why would I need courage to have you on? Are you like an expert in, you know, race or racial history? Are you a lawyer? Are you a legal scholar? Is that part of your background?
Yeah, I'm a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, where I'm running their initiative on critical race theory. And the reason that I reached out on Twitter to you, and I appreciate you having me on, I enjoy this kind of cross-partisan dialogue. But the reason is not just because you were attacking me on air, which I think is fine. It's politics.
Well, wait,
that's fair game.
1 second. I'm sorry. I wasn't attacking you. I was reading your quote. So that's what I did. I read your quote.
Sure, but you were reading it with the framing, calling me a political operative, which I'm not. I'm actually a think tank scholar. But let's put all that aside. The problem that I have is that you've really spread 4, I think, key false pieces of information about critical race theory. Okay. You've claimed in recent weeks that critical race theory isn't being taught in schools. You've claimed that most American public school students learn what you call Confederate race theory and are taught that slavery was, quote, not so bad. You've claimed that state legislation will prevent schools from teaching about the history of racism. And finally, you've claimed that critical race theory isn't rooted in the philosophical tradition of Marxism. And I think that all 4 of those claims are wrong, and I'd love to discuss them tonight.
And at that point, guys, she does not want to debate, right? She's done after that because she knows she cannot defend any of those statements because they're all objectively false, right? She knows she can't. So just keep that in mind as I go through the rest of this clip, that she knows that if she lets him talk, she's going to have to answer for all those statements that she made that she know is objectively false. So keep that in mind as we move throughout this video, because at that point, Christopher Rufo destroyed her, basically at that point, because she can't defend any of those statements. They're objectively just false statements that she's made on air, and she doesn't want to have to defend that because she can't, okay? She's ignorant on a theory that she so passionately defends. She really is.
Ibram Kendi, Dr. Ibram Kendi, who's a college professor. You call him the guru of critical race theory. So we reached out to him. I've interviewed him before. So we reached out to him because you say he's the guru of critical race theory. You name him a lot in a lot of your, both in your manifesto or your talking points memo, but also in your video. We reached out to him. We asked him if he's a critical race theorist. He said, I admire critical race theory, but I don't identify as a critical race theorist. I'm not a legal scholar, so I wasn't trained on critical race theory. I'm a historian. And Chris would know this if he actually read my work or understood that critical race theory is taught in law schools. I didn't attend law school, which is where critical race theory is taught. It's really the only place it's taught. NBC has looked into everywhere, and it's not taught in elementary school. But hold on a second. This is the second thing he said, which is strange to me that you...
Let me respond. This is not a monologue. This should be a dialogue, right? Am I right?
It's my show, so it's how I want to do it. So let me...
See, she's not going to let him respond because she doesn't want to debate whether or not critical race theory is being taught in schools. But at the same time, she wants to tell her audience that GOP is banning critical race theory in schools because they don't want to teach slavery and Jim Crow. Okay? When she knows damn well that teaching slavery and Jim Crow is not critical race theory, and she knows that elements of critical race theory are being taught in school that have nothing to do with that. But see, she doesn't want him to bring that up. So she's going to keep talking over him because of that.
Let me read you one more quote from him, because you've made a lot of claims about critical race theory saying that white Americans are inherently racist, that racism is inherent to whiteness. And that is one of the core charges that you're making about, you know, these sort of what you consider like sort of woke studies in school. This is what Ibram Kendi has said in his own words. He said, we've been taught that racist is essential to who a person is. It's a fixed category. It's in someone's heart. That's one of the reasons why people are unwilling to or unable to admit the times in which they're being racist, because it's not just admitting I was being racist in that moment. Basically, we're tattooing racist on our forehead for the rest of our lives. Isn't that the opposite of what you're arguing?
Well, I'll say two things. First of all, it's very interesting to me that so many people are now running away from the race of the label of critical race theory. But
he's not a critical race theorist.
Hold on. I'm going to quote two critical race theorists. Barbara Applebaum with the book Being Good, Being White. She says, quote, all white people are racist. Robin DiAngelo, who's another critical whiteness studies scholar, says that, quote, all white identity is inherently racist. So what you're doing is you're playing a series of word games. You know that critical whiteness studies is a subfield of critical race theory?
No, it's not.
These things are all deeply interrelated.
No, they're not.
And I'm not going to let you play word games. And this is really, I think, the most essential thing.
Hold on. No.
Let me respond at least once. I haven't gotten a full sentence out.
Because I'm not going to let you. See, one of the things that, and I don't know, you probably never watched me on TV, just, you know, we didn't know who each other were, you know, not so long ago. But I don't allow people to just make up and say lies on the show. It's just not really right to do that and let people hear. But hold on.
But
Robin DiAngelo,
wait. Am I right
Robin
or wrong?
DiAngelo is not a critical race theorist, and I want everyone to know that. I don't know who the other woman is, but she's not. But
wait, so you don't know who the other woman is, but she's not a critical race theorist. How do you know that if you don't know who she is? You see how she's not arguing in good faith. Nobody to her is a critical race theorist. If you're not a critical race scholar, right? If you don't actually study it in the academic field, no. They're not critical race theorists, even though there are elements of the things that they're saying that come from critical race theory, right? It's all similar stuff, okay? It's all rooted in Marxism to a certain extent, right? But see, she doesn't want to have that argument because she can't win on that. What she wants to say is that, well, all the people you're naming, you know, all these anti-white people, even though, you know, anti-whiteness and equity and all these things are part of critical race theory. Because those people are not critical race theory scholars. They're not critical race theorists. So therefore you're wrong. They're trying to escape the argument of talking about how what critical race theory calls for is being implemented in society. But they don't have that conversation though.
Let's just go through a minute, because whiteness, and racist.
Sure.
Where did the term whiteness come from?
Sure, and I think this is an important point, and I hope you let me actually get a full paragraph out about this.
Go for it.
Whiteness is the idea that there is some kind of metaphysical category in the world, that all white people are reducible to this essence of whiteness. Then what happens is that they load all of these negative connotations. They say that whiteness is by definition, that includes white fragility, includes white privilege, includes internalized white superiority. And then what they do is they try to impose these reductive racial categories onto individuals. And I actually agree with Kennedy's approach. I think that we should fight race essentialism. But the problem is that critical race theory enshrines race essentialism.
But you
and
said
you see it in schools. And I'll give you 3 examples of critical race theory being taught in schools.
Hold on one second.
In Cupertino, California.
These are in your talking points, sir. Chris, these are in your talking points, and I know what you're going to say because you said it with Mark Lamont Hill. You repeat these same things. They're in this manifesto. People can read it online. Let me just go for a second. On the subject of whiteness, are you aware, since you say that I guess you're sort of a quasi-historian in your thinking, that whiteness was actually formed in the United States? That whiteness didn't even exist as a thing. Europeans were all European. They considered themselves Italian or Polish or whatever. When the colonists came here, they actually created the idea of whiteness. This is from the Smithsonian.
I agree with
as
that.
a way to distinguish themselves from what they call the savages, the natives, and from black people, from Africans, who even if you had a little African in you, if you're Plessy, who's 7/8 white, if you are African in any aspect, that you are reduced of rights. So people that you don't like, that are doing this sort of wokeness training, are saying whiteness has always had power. There used to be a saying, I'm free, white, and 18. It was commonly said in the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So whiteness has power. So people who want to decouple whiteness from power, that's what you're annoyed by, right? Let me play a little bit of what you said. You did a speech. Hold on. You did a speech at the Claremont Institute in which you talked.
Oh, man. You see how she's just ramrodding him, right? With her talking points. She stops him from using his talking points, but she wants to talk to him about her talking points. Right, in which she's really going to, she's really talking about things that are a figment of recent history, right? To say that whiteness has always had power is really just ignoring all of history, right? The white man has not always been on top or dominant throughout history, right? These people are literally upset with the fact that white people are the majority. They're not upset about racism. They don't care about that. They're just mad because white people are the majority. That's their beef, guys. That's their beef. That's what they're mad about. Period. Like,
a little bit about how you really feel about the academics of it. Here it is. This is cut. I think this is it 3? Yeah, go for it. Play it.
I'm a white guy fighting critical race theory.
Do you identify as white?
I'm an Italian American, so you tell me. Lumping people into white, black, Asian, as you suggested, is such a crude and broad categorization.
There's these very kind of pathetic and very, angry graduate students that try to fight me on these highly technical, Hegel interpretations. And it's like, I don't have time for this. I don't give a about this stuff.
So you don't give an S about this stuff. You're really just having a campaign to take everything that annoys white Americans and white conservatives.
No, that's not right.
You want to make a campaign and stuff everything in there that people
You played my highlight reel. Give me a chance to respond.
And you want
that's absolutely
to stuff
wrong.
it all into critical race theory, right?
What I don't...
Bruh, she's strawmanning the hell out of this guy. Oh, play some highlights of things he's saying out of context. And then tell her audience that he's not really interested in critical race theory, guys. He's just saying it because white people don't like it, right? He's saying he doesn't really give a shit, right? In which, I agree with him. I don't give a shit either, okay? Right? I don't care about the stuff in the sense that I want to adopt that ideology or that I care about studying it, but I do care about it to the point where it's like, okay, you're trying to push this on society and it's divisive. I care about that. I don't care about it from an academic perspective, right? I care about actual implementation. And what he's saying is that he doesn't want to get down into the semantics games with these graduate students, which is a game that they love to play to try to make it seem like people are ignorant because people don't want to go back and forth with them about what intersectionality means and all these other woke terms mean. That's basically probably what he means, okay?
I think is right is that forcing 8-year-olds in Cupertino, California to deconstruct their racial identities and then rank themselves according to power and privilege. It's
But it's an element of critical race theory. She keeps trying to make this argument. Oh, it's not critical race theory. It's not the academic course of critical race theory. So therefore, it's not critical race theory. She's ignoring the part about the elements, what it calls for. That's the important part of critical race theory. It's not the theory in and of itself. It's what it calls for. Okay, that's the problem.
Intersectionality theory, which was invented by Kimberly Crenshaw.
It's a separate thing.
Which is part of critical race theory.
No, it's not, dear.
You had her on your show. You know this.
Yeah, she invented both things. Here's the bottom line, Joy. She invented both things. What you've done in tonight's segment is exactly what I'm fighting against.
Again, guys, this is just a flat-out lie. She's just flat-out lying, or she just doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Intersectionality is a key component of critical race theory, guys. And the only thing intersectionality says is that race can intersect with like other social identities, right? Like class and gender and stuff like that in order to create and affect a complex power structure and dynamic. That's what intersectionality is. That's literally a key component of critical race theory, but yet she's just flat out lying, right? This is what I'm talking about. She's not arguing in good faith, okay? She's not.
I'm fighting against the manipulation of language. I'm fighting against language.
You're fighting against wokeness, and you don't like corporate wokeness, etc. I get it.
Euphemistic terms with subversive content, because otherwise you just say whatever you want, and then you back away from it and you dance around it. It's not going to happen. Parents all over this country, they know what's happening in schools. They know what's happening in their public institutions, and you're seeing people revolt against this divisive identity politics. And you can dance all you want, but you're not going to stop people from understanding what's happening in their classrooms.
I actually appreciate that you said that because, Christopher, what you basically, and you admit it yourself, that you've taken all of these sort of wokeness moments, corporate wokeness, that corporate sort of woke money, woke capital, the things that annoy conservatives, and you've stuffed it all into the name critical race theory. It's really like, it's like Christopher Rufo theory. You stuffed it all in. Here's what you said. You tweeted this. The activists, hold on one second. I'm going to read you to you, and then you can respond to it. I'm going to read you to you, and then you respond to it. The activists are realizing that their ideas, once put into practice, are generating discontent, which is you just described. Their racial coalition is also breaking apart. Asian Americans, in particular, revolting against CRT, which is really Christopher Rufo theory because you made it up, is punishing them more than any other group. Then you said we have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. Aren't you just taking wokeness stuff that annoys you and calling it critical race theory?
No, not at all. The idea of the codification and decodification of language comes from the critical pedagogist Paulo Freire. And my strategy is to take these...
Now you're doing pedagogy, Christopher?
Yes. To take these techniques and use them against their own ideology. And I'll tell you, Joy, my strategy has been enormously successful. According to the Economist magazine poll, 64% of Americans now know what critical race theory is.
No, they know what Christopher Rufo theory is.
Of which 58% of them
you made up your own thing, bro. You made, my friend, you made up your own thing. You admitted you were going to do it. And I'm going to give you credit for one thing. You did create your own thing. Not a lot of guys in their 30s have created their own thing, labeled it something that already existed as a name, slapped that brand name on it, and turned it into a successful political strategy. You've done that. It's creating a lot of hell at school board meetings, but you did accomplish that. So, Christopher Rufo, thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Well, really Joy, I appreciate it. And I'll give you the position as the most prestigious Christopher Rufo theory scholar in the world. I hope next time you give me at least a chance to complete 2 sentences. I think it'll be a lot more fun.
Well, not if you're going to do
try
talking
again
points.
Next time.
They were your talking
we'll try
points. So
again.
people can read your talking points online because they're online as well. You can read all of them.
Bruh. She complains about him using talking points. But the whole thing was her shouting talking point after talking point after talking point at him. She did not come prepared to have a debate and a conversation with this man. She came prepared to make sure that her audience does not learn what critical race theory is and what are the elements of critical race theory and how they are seeping into our society. A lot of critical race theories don't think that race neutral policies, okay, it's not enough because of their idea of how laws are set up based off race. Okay, so they call for literally things that encompass making laws based off race to specifically benefit a certain group of people at the expense of others, right? Those that are in power. That's what it calls for. But they don't want you to know that because they know that the implications of that is going to be unpopular. That's why they don't want you to know. That's why they want to avoid having the argument about, okay, what does critical race theory actually call for? Okay. But again, guys, I'm not surprised by this. Okay. Because, you know, Joy Reid at the opening of this debate, Christopher Rufo hit her on the points, right, that he needed to hit. And she was done at that point, right? She was like, I'm not letting this dude talk. Because she didn't want to explain herself and her asinine statements that she's made in the past. So therefore, she was like, I'm just not letting this dude talk. He might ramrod me in this debate. I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to hit him with talking points. And that's what happened, right? And this describes the left, right? They're not interested in having a real debate on any level with those on the right. But then they'll turn around and say, oh, right-wingers are scared to debate leftists. When, again, you know, I don't blame people on the right for being like, nah, I'm not debating people on the left anymore because stuff like this happens. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.